En ce moment,
The AU Commission Chair's sobering remarks sounding the alarm that the economic consequences of the pandemic continue to be acute in a continent that is seeing rising infections and fatalities due, in the main, to low vaccine availability for the region.
today, the biggest challenge Africa is facing is vaccine issue. It is a very big mistake to think that the world may be secure while the African continent is still lacking protection against the virus and its variants. Can we forget that the world is globalized and that the pandemic is profoundly too? On the political front, there have been challenges in sustaining the necessary political processes for implementing transitions and peace agreements on the ground to avoid a collapse of many African nations.
There are currently 6 UN peacekeeping missions in Africa in addition to political missions that support peace building and development in a region prone to political instability and conflict. Coupled with that are the economic impacts of the pandemic, slow economic growth, low levels of international trade and demand for Africa's primary exports, while rising external debt and inflation have left Africa in a precarious position. Massive job losses in the region could lead to future unrest and instability.
20 African countries are facing the risks of collapse because of the burden of debt. This will require new thinking and initiatives aimed at post-pandemic recovery. I would like to stress that an economic recovery strategy focuses more on an economic stimulus and debt restructuring and not on austerity. The global travel bans and the national lockdowns has generated a socio-economic crisis which has led to disruption of economies and affected both the formal and informal employment sectors, leading to massive job losses, rising inflation, and a real deterioration in living standards.
Of the 1.4 billion vaccine doses administered around the world to date, only 24 million have reached Africa, representing less than 2%, directly impacting economic recovery, as evidenced in countries with broader vaccine access.
The United Nations is advocating everywhere for a coordinated global effort on vaccines and for measures to alleviate the debt burden that threatens to cripple the recovery in many low and middle-income developing countries, and particularly in Africa. I welcome the record allocation of special drawing rights by the International Monetary Fund. But these must come with a reallocation without additional onus, so that liquidity reaches countries that are in need and avoiding additional problems. I also commend the extension of the G20's debt service suspension initiative and the common framework for debt treatments. But eligibility must be prolonged and expanded to all vulnerable developing countries, including middle-income ones, which still borrow at premium rates and risk debt distress.
As calls for the strengthening and reform of the international debt architecture grow louder. Sherman Bryceby's SABC News, New York.